Hi everyone, it's Mary. I'm going to be talking about the 10th Amendment today, and in order to do that, I feel like it's important to give a little bit of a background about the Bill of Rights. So, the Constitution that emerged from the 1787 Constitutional Convention didn't have any kind of a Bill of Rights. Now, most state constitutions at the time had bills of rights, and many citizens and members of the constitutional conventions expected the new national constitution to have one as well. Now, the proponents for the Constitution said that no Bill of Rights was really necessary because the limited powers of the national government just didn't include the power to violate any of the rights that the people had. So not everyone was convinced by those arguments, and the absence of a Bill of Rights actually threatened to derail ratification of the Constitution, especially in some major states like Massachusetts and Virginia. And a number of those specific states actually ratified the Constitution only on the understanding that the document would quickly be amended to include a Bill of Rights. So the first 10 amendments to the Constitution are the Bill of Rights, as we know, and the 10th Amendment states that the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So the purpose of this was that the 10th Amendment was intended to confirm the understanding of the people at the time that the Constitution was adopted anyway, that powers not granted to the United States would go to the states or to the United States would go to the states or to the people themselves. The amendment states that all is retained, all the powers that are retained by the people, which has not already been surrendered in the Constitution, would still remain in the people's power. And it shows the relationship between the federal and the state governments, and I think it's really important that the checks and balances system works because the federal government had the Constitution to protect it, and the state and local governments and the citizens of the U.S. have the Bill of Rights to protect them. And I think the Founding Fathers really sought to have a good balance between the two. So there are many court cases that have involved the 10th Amendment, and some of the most important are concerning federal taxation. And this didn't really even come about until after the Civil War, especially beginning in the 1970s. There were a lot of cases that emerged that utilized the 10th Amendment, and a lot of lawyers refer to it now as 10th Amendment doctrine. So those cases all involve action by the federal government that in some way regulates or commands state governments, or it conditions the state's acceptance of federal money on compliance with certain conditions, such as in South Dakota versus Dole in 1987, or such as by telling states what policies they must adopt, as in New York versus the United States in 1992. Or forcing state or local executive officials to implement federal laws, as in Prince versus the United States in 1997. And it seems that these courts much of the time ruled in favor of the states. Not all the time, but I think it really gives light to the 10th Amendment that it's available to protect the state governments at the time. So the 10th Amendment, on a more personal level, also affects education in the states, and this is something that affects everyone. In 2009, more closely related to us, in 2009, the Common Core Standards was an initiative that was developed that involved possible national standards set up by members of the Federal Department of Education, and it's up to states to adopt the Common Core Standards. Approximately 40 out of the 50 states adopted it, but more recently, more states are repealing it because they gave it a try and it's just not working out the way the Department of Education thought that it would. So I think that gives a lot of value to the 10th Amendment in that the states have the power to do that. Thank you.